think we're good. Hi, hello, everybody. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling well. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to the beginning of a new weekend for most of us, in case Marcos is here. Marcos, there you go. Yeah. Dragoon, Marcos, Flash Monkey, Kia, Executor, Ryan, yeah, hello. Ronan, K, sure, what's going on? I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope you're having a good Friday so far, and I hope you're ready for the weekend, whatever the weekend might bring for you. Thank you so much for the 95 stream streak. 5 more to go. Let's see who makes it. Let's see who the first one is. The first one to get to a 100 stream streak. Congratulations. I got nothing for you. Everybody's working for the weekend. I mean, it'd be nice if the weekend was 3 days. We need, listen, as a society, people have talked about this forever. We need to go to a 4-day work week. We need to go to 4 days a week, working 3 days a week off. We need to do that. It's just more fun. But I hope everybody's doing all right. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you got some cool news at some point. I don't know what's. I feel like there's some weird stuff in the news, which is like, great. That means it's a day that ends in Y. I went to a Smash tournament. I hope you had fun. I hope you won a little something here. I hope, Kia, I hope that whatever you learned from us here taught you something at the Smash tournament. Are you a Bears fan? They drafted really well. I'm tired. Flash, I can't remember a time in my life when I wasn't at least a little bit tired. You think I paint on these bags under my eyes? No, they're permanently there for a reason. I've decided to take an extended break from BG3. It's still a great game, but I don't have that first playthrough magic to let me push through Act 3, which again, even after 6 major updates, is buggy, often loads entire buildings with no walls and crashes. Back at release, I could play through because of the what's next. That, you know what, Dragoon, I and you're not technically saying this, but that's a great way to look at just many games in general. I've often said that, I've enjoyed Xenoblade Chronicles, but I didn't go immediately to the DLC. I liked triangle strategy for the most part. There were some things that I didn't really like about that game, but I did enjoy it for the most part. I enjoyed the story, but there's you get like an incomplete ending, and you have to either play through it again or make different choices or something. I have no urge to immediately go back to it. Unicorn Overlord, I burned out. Not burned out, but I beat the game in the story mode, and then I wanted to keep playing because there were some end game things to do. There were like post game things to do. So I did that. And then I won't immediately play it again. It'll be a long time before I play those games again. And not because they're bad, but because that magic often carries you through. That magic is often the wonderment of doing it is what carries you through the game. So, and it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of the way it is. And there's so many other things to play. It's Friday. My new clip, I retweeted it. I'm gonna make a tweet, and then I'm gonna have it so that I just retweet that every Friday. Is the Mr. Burns? It's Mr. Burns and Smithers when he's talking to Smithers, and he says, "Another Friday is upon us. So what will you be doing, Smithers? Something gay, no doubt." And Smithers is like, "What?" And then Mr. Burns says, lighthearted, fancy-free, mothers, lock up your daughters. Smithers is on the town, and he's like, yeah, exactly, sir. So I love that. That's my Friday clip. I love that clip. Busy explaining to my niece, Kirby is not the bad guy. Executor. But then when you start really looking at it, right? It's just, see, Kirby's, he's not entirely the good guy. Joker, what you said, I had one moment yesterday where an entire cutscene played completely muted, only getting sound back after the dialogue all ended. We see QB or wash when pick first, mostly. Catches to Marco. The first 100 gets up. Wow. I'll give you the wow. 4-day work week would also lead to happier people. Oh my God, yeah. I also can't lie that if I had a 4-day work week without more hours in those days, I would be having money problems. So I can't even deny that. But at least with my other day, I could do something else. Maybe get a little part-time job and just feel the connection, the disconnect. I mean, close to voting for that at work, but the day shift moms voted against it, and most people in our department were mad. That's so annoying. You want to know how I got these bags, Batman? Just hiding from you. Yeah, it's good to take breaks. I had fun, but I got destroyed. First round, I got one win up with King K. Rool, then lost twice. Lovers bracket, I lost twice, but I came close to winning twice. I played King K. Rool all rounds. Important thing, yeah, you had fun. That's all that really matters. It's Kia. It's not about whether you win or lose. It's about whether you have fun. But let's be honest, you'd have more fun if you win. It's just, it's true. Both things are true. I'm enjoying Stellar Blade, but it's definitely a Souls-like. This was a point of contention that I had when I played it, and I didn't think it was that way. And the two things that the most Souls-like about it are the things that I don't like. First one is getting sneak attacked, which has happened often enough for me that it's annoying. The second thing is that the level design is, I saw you said this, taking 3 lefts to make a right, which gets irritating after a while because it keeps happening. I'm not sure I understand that, like what exactly you mean by that. I feel like that's the, like 3 lefts to make a right. I feel like the idea there is that there's a shortcut, you know what I mean? Or like there's a shortcut back, right? Like in an RPG where you had to get from here to here and you went all the way around and you got to this point. And then when you got to this point and you beat the boss, it opened up a door that put you right back where you started. So like, but I feel like that's just a video game level design sort of thing. But I guess that is is that a Dark Souls? I'm not a Soulsborne person. So is that a Dark Souls-y kind of thing? See, I think my problem is whenever people say Souls-like, my immediate thought is the combat. That's my first thought is the slow sort of combat. That's why I was like, I don't really know if I consider this a Souls-like game, but if every other aspect of it is Souls-like, then that kind of makes sense. I hate autocorrect. What time is it? It's 4 p.m. Eastern. We start late on Friday. Well, we kind of start all over the place on Fridays. Calling it my first playthrough syndrome. FPS. Oh my god. Where on a first playthrough, we can easily ignore some of the major issues that otherwise would ruin an experience for us because we got carried away by the first time excitement. But on revisit, we go, oh god, I hate this. See, but I don't know. That makes it sound like it's a bad thing, and I think that I would choose to focus more on the fact that when you first play through a game, it's amazing. Not I don't notice the flaws. It's I love everything about it. I'm amazed by the environment. I'm meeting all these new characters. I'm getting all these new interesting pieces of storyline. And then when you're done and the dust settles and then you go at it again, then I would say that's when you start saying, oh, okay, because the wonderment's not there to elevate you. So now you're looking at it in a more objective way, and now you're saying, I really did like this. I really didn't like that. But yeah, I choose to look at it a bit more positively and say that on a first playthrough, like, because you're right, there is the wonderment aspect of it, but I don't look at that as a bad thing. I don't look at that as the wonderment is masking the problems. I would just say the wonderment is the important thing. And I think that's why I don't really go back to games immediately, is because I don't want to. Like, I want to chase that feeling of this is awesome. And if a game does that enough for me and I don't want to escape it, like Tears of the Kingdom, where you want to do all of the 100% stuff, and this is like, like you want to do all of that. Like Unicorn Overlord, I beat the story and then I kept playing it because there was post-game stuff to do and I wanted to keep playing the game. But now I've kind of done everything. I'll try not to spoil it. I'm going to try and say things that don't exactly sound like spoilers. I beat the story mode. I did pretty much all of the side quests that are in the area that are on the map. You can like rebuild the towns, like you deliver materials and you rebuild the towns. I rebuilt all the for anybody that played it, they'll know what I'm talking about. I rebuilt all the towns. I post game, there's a big giant quest that you do. I did that quest. There's a battle coliseum. I went back this morning and I finished all of the battle coliseum. So like I did pretty much everything there is to do in the game outside of restarting it and playing it on the harder mode. So I've done, but I did that because I very much like that game and I wanted to keep playing it. I did the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom. But there are games out there where I play it and I'm just like, I kind of have to get to the end. And when I do, I don't really care to do anything else. Kirby tries to be wholly the good guy, but his stomach is blind. Kirby's not the villain. Kirby just suffers from being a beat-em-up protagonist in a beat-em-up platformer. She loves Kirby, but I had her playing the new game, and he's eating these cute animals and saying, "Why is he doing that?" Because he's the villain. Sean, what's going on? I'm okay. I'm okay today. I had a weird kind of day. It was kind of back and forth, and there was one very funny thing that I want to tell you guys what happened. I recently moved from 6-day work week to a 4-day work week. I love the extra time off. I do like the extra 3 to 4 hours each day, but it's worth it for that time off. It's you work an extra 3 or 4 hours a day. Is that what you're saying? You give me 4 days a week, 10 hours a day of work, and I would be ecstatic. I would be happy. That's what winners say. If you're too bad at the game, you don't have fun. I mean, that's true. If you're too good at the game, you don't have fun. Yeah, you're kind of right. Well, I don't know. Flash, I think that if you're too good at the game, I do think that that's sort of subjective because there are days when I am really good at a game, and like especially a competitive game like that. I've had days where I was just on fire on Splatoon or something, and I could swear everybody else was in C rank, and I'm like, yeah, I'm having fun. Some days, listen, a lot of the time when you play competitive things, whether it's sports or video games or anything like that, a lot of the time you want good competition. You want someone that's going to keep you on your toes. You want to get to the end of it and you want to say that was a good match. You want to feel like you earned it. But sometimes, every once in a while, you just want to beat somebody's ass. You know? You want to get onto the game and you want to destroy everyone. Maybe you're having a bad day and you want to beat everybody up. Maybe you're having a good day and you want to practice your combos. And if they keep guarding you and dropping your combos, you're not really going to get the practice in. Sometimes you want to beat their asses. It's true. Hold on, I'm going to jump ahead here. Soulsborne level design is very specific. You have to go higher, tither and yon, just to find a shortcut. The devs effed up. It's a bad thing in my example because while BG3 was great, Act 3 now that I'm not hyped is legit unplayable at times. I mean, that's a different problem. That's what you're talking. I'm going to finish your comment there, but what you're talking about right there is the fact that it's not functioning. That's different. That's something. Kingdom Hearts. When I first played Kingdom Hearts, I very much enjoyed that game. On subsequent playthroughs, on subsequent attempts to play through that game, I either got to Atlantica, I think it was called, and I immediately didn't want to play the game anymore, or I thought maybe I'll play through it again. I remembered Atlantica and said I don't want to play that game, and then I didn't play it. So, like, there's a difference. But your problem is that the game is not functioning right now. And that's a whole different problem. It's legit unplayable at times. Constantly pulls you out. It's inexcusable in basically any game. It's shocking we ignored how bad they always were. And again, I think the problem is that reviews and stuff, they go by first playthroughs. That first playthrough wonderment that you have that we just talked about, that's what reviews go by. They play the game one time, they say it's amazing, and then they are done. And then better reviews. That's why it's good to have reviews from later on where they're going to review it after the DLC patches, after the fixes, after anything that broke the game. And they're going to look at it and they're going to say, yeah, this is kind of a mess. This is messed up. Unlike that with Zelda games, the 3D ones. I cry when I entered Press Garden on my first playthrough of Sonic Mania. It's so beautiful, especially when your franchise is starved for good news. Shortcuts should take maybe 20-30 minutes to find. Now, if the enemies are kicking your butt, so long as there's no input lag and things are fair, it's a skill issue. Maybe that's why I don't like Souls games. I can replay games, but I'm also a speedrunner. Yeah, you kind of have to. I can replay games, but if on a replay I find that I'm not, I missed a bunch of messages here. I can replay games, and I have replay games. I mean, there's games that I've played many times. Usually older ones because they're shorter experiences, but there are also games that I very, very much loved that I won't go back to. That I was like, yeah, I had a terrific time with that game. Unbelievable. Fantastic. I'm probably never going to play it again. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is a good example of that. And to be fair, part of that is because the next time I go back to Xenoblade, it's going to be the DLC. And then it's going to be 2. And then it's probably going to be 2's DLC. And then it's going to be 3. And then it's going to be 3's DLC. So, like, if I stay on the Xenoblade train, there's 7,000 hours of gameplay in between me and a replay of 1. That's why I as much as, like, I get it. I get that people are not really all like that, so a lot of people don't mind. It still kind of boggles my mind that years ago, only a few years after the game came out, that people have told me that they have played through Persona 5 multiple times. That always kind of was amazing to me. Like, there are so many other games, like, and I'm not crapping on Persona 5 to say that it's a terrible game and you shouldn't be playing it, but it's wild to me that that game takes as long as it does, notoriously, and there's apparently something so amazing about it that people have done multiple playthroughs of that game while there's other games like it that are just sitting on the shelf. It's kind of wild to me. And I can't, like, for all the times that I've ever played Final Fantasy Tactics, I know there were games like that I was missing. A lot of the time I just didn't have access to them. That was me with Xenoblade 3. Had just finished the main game after the DLC came out. Still haven't gone back to it, but planning on it soon. So apparently the Knuckles show is super bad, according to John. John mentioned John was here today. We were talking for a little bit, and John and Nora stopped by. And he was telling me I think it was episode 3. He was telling me about it. He's like, the whole episode is about this thing. I'm like, why? Wait, like, I'm not crapping on it, but it's like, that's a weird thing for the show to be about. I think it was the 3rd episode. Yeah, there's a Knuckles show. It's on Paramount Plus, so I'll never watch it. I'll give you an example. A few hours into the game, you come across an obelisk that has a lift inside it, but you can't open the door to it. How do you open the door? You need to turn the power on. Is this BG3? Wait, which game are you talking about, Ronan? Are you talking about BG3? How do you open the door? You turn on the power. So you go and find the power switch, but it needs a fusion core. Where's the fusion core? It's behind the door that's across from the. Oh, you're talking about Stellar Blade. My fault. So you go to the door, but it requires a password. Where's the password? It's on a dead guy. Go look for him. Yeah. I don't know if I'd call that 3 lefts to make a right. I would call that it's like a trail of breadcrumbs that leads away from the door, right? It's like a Hardy Boys episode. It's like here's the thing that I need to do. Here's a trail of breadcrumbs that goes 80 miles in the wrong direction, and then I'm gonna have to like fast travel back. So I guess it is kind of like that, but yeah, that to me is kind of like, come on, yeah, standard RPG. You know what I say about something like that? Oh my God. It's all coming full circle here. I'm going to try and get to all these comments. I see I'm missing a lot of stuff. It's all coming full circle here. It's something I usually refer to it as not respecting my time. I think it's obnoxious. I think it is Final Fantasy 14. I need the guy needs a bucket of water. I've got a side quest. I have to do a quest to get the bucket. I have to do a quest to open up the path to the creek. I have to get the bucket of water. I have to fight just give me the bucket. And I'm bringing that up because that's a very specific reason. Like, there's a reason I'm saying that reason. But it's that. So yeah, Alexa, that's obnoxious. There's a point where you're clearly it's not micromanaging. It's not I was going to say microdosing. It's parsing out every tiny bit of a thing that you need to do, and then yes, it's padding. It's padding for padding's sakes. That's a common issue a lot of 14 fans have, or I would say had. Apparently, they did fix a lot of that. It's about to come full circle. Yeah, that's all that ARR stuff. Or not ARR 1.0. That's all the 1.0 stuff. It's about to come full circle. I've often said to you that I played Twilight Princess up to a certain point, and then I got annoyed and I stopped. And then there was like a year gap before I went back to the game. When I did, I forget exactly what it is that you do, but it was the mirror. It was when you get to the Twilight Mirror and you find out that that's the thing you need, and then all of a sudden, oh boy, look at that. The mirror is broken in 3 pieces, and you have to go and find them. And I immediately turned the game off. I remember that moment that I turned that game off because I said, for the love of God, can Link not interact with something that isn't broken into pieces that he has to go and collect? It felt like padding to me. And that was when I put that game down. And it was probably like a year and a half later that I said, I'm going to go back. And I didn't restart it. Normally, I restart a game after that long. I was like, no, I refuse to go back. I'm going to pick this game up right where I left it off. And I did it, and it was fine. But you collected the Triforce pieces in Wind Waker just fine. I did. And I didn't hate the Triforce quest. See, you say the Triforce quest was worse. I said the Triforce quest was better for one reason. For one very important reason. I thought the Triforce quest was better because I found the entire game to be more enjoyable. I thought Wind Waker was a overall better experience. I always talk about Twilight Princess being mid. Like, I don't hate the game, but I don't really love the game. In this particular reason, the problem is I would rather in hunting Triforce pieces versus going after the mirror pieces. The biggest problem is that in hunting the Triforce pieces, I get to play Wind Waker, and in hunting the mirror, I have to play Twilight Princess. That is what's wrong with that game. That was why I put that game down. Everything about Wind Waker, in my opinion, was a better game, or let's be fair, a game that I enjoyed more. So I had less of a problem playing through that game than I did playing Twilight Princess. And that mirror thing is exactly that example. It's that it feels like padding. It's obnoxious. I don't like it. It's why I put down Dragon Quest VII. I played Dragon Quest VII. I forget how many hours I played it for, but I played Dragon Quest VII for a while. And my God, I apologize to Dragon Quest fans, although I don't think I have to because Ted, of all people, told me, like, Dragon Quest Ted warned me about this. I don't know that I've ever played a game that does not respect your time more than Dragon Quest VII. It made you do everything. And it was just exhausting. Hours would go by for you going back and forth to do things and never once get into a fight or get into any kind of engagement. At no point does that game respect your time in any way whatsoever. And it was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. It was so long. See, in Stone, you either love or hate Dragon Quest VII. Unless you're going to say I don't know anybody that I've talked to that loves that game. I know people that have said that they have tolerated the game and that once you get past all of the crap, there's something good there. But most people said the one thing that everybody did agree with is that if you've never played a Dragon Quest game before, do not start there. That's the one thing that a lot of people said. I'm going to try and go up and catch some of these messages. I'm sorry. Last one comment, one video mentioned learning to fire a rocket. Oh yeah. So great. Yeah, you mentioned that was you, Jerf. I guess that said that about. I know I didn't actually see Blue Exorcist. Is that literally a reference to Blue Exorcist? Jerf, do me a favor. If there's a clip that explains that about Blue Exorcist, can you link that in Discord? Because I didn't see Blue Exorcist, so I wasn't sure that was actually a reference to anything. Worst part of BGT reviews, they didn't review the whole game generally. They got through Act 1, but didn't mention that until complaints about Act 2 and 3 started to pop up, which is another problem with early reviews. Max out on all social links in one playthrough. It's the Majora's Mask Pikmin replayability under a faster time thing, aka what got me into speedrunning in the first place. The first palace in Persona 5 and for PSP5R is absolutely fantastic and gripping. It grabs your interest super hard. Flash Monkey, thank you so much for the 200 bits. Hold on, I'll go back to that message. Thank you so much. Meant to pair that with an earlier message. Very, very much appreciate that, Flash. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hold on, let me go back up to this message here. It's very well told. Then before the next palace even starts, anime trope that almost completely shits all over all of the events of the first palace is played for like, brother. You're Sean. I get it. I get that Persona 5 is this magical experience for a lot of people, but sometimes I feel like every time someone really talks about it and describes it a little bit more, I think I like it a little bit less. Like I think I'm less interested in getting back to actually trying it out. And I'm playing Persona 5 Tactica right now. I started that game today. That's not a bad game. I like that game for the most part. It's a good tactical style gameplay. I'm enjoying. I like the fact that the characters are already there because they were already established in P5. So I do kind of dig the fact that the characters are already set up a bit. And there's new characters. Like the villain is new and the character that's helping you is new. So I'm not completely in the dark about everything. Like I'm not more in the dark about everything about these things than other players. There's one I just did where I found a door I need to progress, but it's locked. So you literally have to take multiple rights. Oh, you actually do have to take rights to go left. That's pretty bad. Hold on, I was scrolling down. I still think if you could travel with Midnair or True Form, Greg would have a much better take on. No, I guess you're joking, but no, I think my problem with Twilight Princess was that it just felt bland to me. It was pretty to look at and dull to look at all at the same time. Like graphically, it was nice, but it was also visually dull. I like color wise, contrast wise, it just visually was not really appealing. But I don't know. It was so. I mean, I know it's become a gag for me to dunk on Twilight Princess, and I for the most part, I over exaggerate it, but it really is a very middling experience for me. It is an extremely mid Zelda game. It looks great, but it's not that great. The gameplay's fine, but it's not amazing. It's like everything about it it's like a solid 5. It's more it's as 5 as 5 can be, right? I don't know. There's something about it that, again, maybe if I play through it again, I'll like it more, but it really kind of is like that. So let's talk about revisiting the game and having nitpicks about it. Like I have with Final Fantasy 16, I could replay that and still enjoy it with some skipping. BG3 Act 3 legit still didn't work. Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's what I was saying. Like your problem is less about the fact that the game is just blah and more about the fact that it's not functioning right now. Unrelated. 5 is my favorite number. 5 is the magic number. Being real, I feel Persona 5 is hitting that point of that acquaintance you told us about. You can't play it without thinking of someone who oversold it to you, which I've told that story before. I did have somebody that did that for me with Lunar. Yeah, you're not entirely wrong. I think I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be completely honest with you. If I ever try Persona 5 again, I'm probably not going to tell anybody. That's probably, like, I always put something up on Twitter. I put up a screenshot of what I'm playing, or like for Xenoblade Chronicles, I did the thread as I was playing it, I was putting it up. Persona 5 is a game I probably won't even tell people I'm playing. I'll probably just put up a message and say, like, yeah, I've been playing Persona 5. I don't know. I don't know. Like if I were to ever try Earthbound again, I wouldn't tell anybody. I don't want anybody to know what's happening. I need to go into it. I think Persona 5 is going to be something that I need to go into without any input whatsoever. I need that to be a completely external experience from the internet and from the world. I need to play that by myself. Did you get it? No, Latimer, I didn't. Did you post it in where'd you post it in Discord? Can you post it again in Discord? I do want that. I want that as an audio clip. I can't find the scene I'm looking for in Blue Exorcist. The scene where demons attack a church and all the priests are killing them with guns and brass knuckles while praying and quoting Bible verses. I mean, Jerf, if you want, there was a comic years ago. They made a Netflix show, and I don't know if they finished. I don't know if they went back and finished the next season of the Netflix show. It was called Ariella. Well, okay, so the comic I believe was called Ariella Warrior Nun. I think on Netflix it was just called Warrior Nun. And that was like that. The idea is that the church is the church, but the church is also a front for actually fighting demons. And there are your normal nuns that you're used to, but there are a faction of nuns and priests that's their job, is that they violently combat actual demons. And it was a great comic. And then I was very happy when they made the Netflix show, because I remember when they announced the Netflix show, my thought was, I can't believe someone remembers Ariella Warrior Nun. And they made it, and the show wasn't bad. I actually thought that the show was kind of decent, but then it ended on a cliffhanger, and there was never any word. Apparently they did do a season 2, or they were supposed to, but I don't know what happened. I think the season 2 announcement might have been, I don't know if it was pre-Cove or maybe slightly after, but I think that probably put it on hiatus or something. You say that like you're going to do antidepressants. So Twilight Princess is like a boring live action adaptation. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's visually very nice to look at, but not what I'm used to, or not what I like out of a Zelda. I've often said that one of my favorite Zelda games aesthetically is Minish Cap. It definitely has a more realistic look to it. It's a bit more drab. That's kind of a good way to put it. If they made a live action Zelda show, I feel like it would probably be what Twilight Princess is. Follower form about it again. Okay, hold on. Okay, there we go. I got it. Hold on. Is this it? We shall come. See, that's hysterical. Can you hear that? It's not too loud. I'll have to turn it up. We shall come. That's such a great line. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'll have to hold on. Let me download that now. That's funny. I'll run that through a filter and crank it up. So is that Bayonetta? No, it's kind of different from, like, you have to really see it. It's very good. It's Warrior Nun I thought was pretty good. Warrior Nun sounds like my perception of Castlevania, but yassified. No, I don't think it's that. Who would you point me and many people were able to ignore that issue of BG3 when it came out because it's so good. But now upon revisiting it, I'm like, how did we let this game get away with this? They're getting away with it. They took us for a ride. I don't know, because I think when people got to the end of BG3, I think it was very well known that it was busted. I think people knew that. We've talked about it here before, that apparently when the game first came out, for the first few weeks or a month, the Act 3 was just all kinds of busted. A lot of Persona games, in my opinion, are better solo experiences. You sure it's worth your time, Mr. I Hate Social Links? That's the other thing that's keeping me from going back and trying Persona again. It's the social links. Oh, I would know. We're friends on Switch, and it tells me what you're playing. Oh, I watch you while you game. Skyward Sword tried to make us a lot more colorful, but that game is padding RS. Yeah, Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword's a better looking Twilight Princess. That's a nice way to look at that. Because I did think and that's what's amazing. I look at Skyward Sword, and whenever people crap on Skyward Sword, I feel like it looks incredible. And I feel like that's the one thing that people didn't used to talk about back in the Wii days, was that, oh, Skyward Sword, it's doing this and it's backtracking and blah blah blah. And I'm like, but it looks good. Am I the only one that thought that game looked incredible? I thought it looked great. And apparently there's some sort of foggy filter over everything that when you remove, the game looks even better, which it's kind of annoying that they didn't remove that. I'm currently going through the end of Persona 3 right now, and honestly, I think all of them, all of them, 3 is the one that might work best for you. While it was the one to start social links, it doesn't have them tie to anything other than giving an XP boost when making Persona, and you unlock a Persona for completing, but that is 22 out of like 500 Persona, so you'll have more than enough throughout the game. You can focus on some if you like the characters, otherwise you just that's a good thing for me, Lilac, is if there's a character that I like, I'll focus on them. Unicorn Overlord has a rapport system, so the more if you put the characters on the team and you keep them there long enough, they'll reach these milestones where it'll unlock these little story interactions. I really only focused on a couple of them. I'm not going to sit there and swap characters around and play the whole game again so that I can get more of them. Like, I'm not going to do anything like that. But yeah, I didn't have a problem. It was a very simple system, and it got you like 2 honor points out of the hundreds and thousands that you get throughout the game. So it was negligible. But yeah, I enjoyed it. There were certain characters that I wanted them to talk and I wanted to see their interaction, so it was nice to have that. But yeah, something where it's like the skills of the game are tied to that stuff, I feel like I have to do it all the time, or I feel like I'm not going to be powerful. Like, imagine getting to a boss, getting to the end boss of the game, and then not having the right skills, and then thinking, damn, I should have had more coffee with them. Right? That's why I don't like that as a concept. I don't like the idea that I'll get to the end of the game and I'll be missing the right skills, and my only thought is going to be, if only we had more tea parties. I don't want to think that. I think TP has the most cartoony proportions other than Wind Waker. Wait, what do you mean, like proportions of the characters? I'm thinking more like the visuals, like the environments and stuff, like the coloring and the saturation. Like, I know that's kind of the boring stuff. Everybody likes to talk about the character designs and all. The coloring and saturation and that stuff is important to me too. And I thought Twilight Princess was just bland. Credit to the game, I had it spoiled for me. I knew what was coming, not how it was happening, but I still knew, and it got me in tears. It got tears to form. Wait, BG3? Wait, hold on. I don't know which one we're talking about here. I prefer Twilight Princess padding over Wind Waker's. I hated Wind Waker's Triforce Hunt and already hated the sailing. That said, I think Twilight Princess is ugly shit, and I love Wind Waker's art style. Literally a third of BG3 didn't work, and still doesn't. But many said it's a testament. Wait, what? Testament to the game development. Other games will fear it. Fully functional game compared to other choices for Game of the Year. I mean, if any game out there is a fear for other games, it's Helldivers. Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 should probably be more of a fear to other game companies out there, because half of that game feels like it's half-assed, and it still feels like a complete game somehow. There's no story mode, right? There's no there's so much stuff missing from a traditional video game experience in Helldivers 2, and you don't care because what is there is incredible. So Castlevania. Skyward Sword has my favorite Link and my favorite Link and Zelda interactions. Ooh, favorite Link and Zelda interactions? Like single interaction or relationship between the two? Yeah, see, I like Minish Cap's relationship between them. I like that they were friends and they got to be friendly with each other. I always love when they do that. I liked, was it Phantom Hourglass, where she gets to be like your ghostly buddy that goes around the game? I like that version of her. Oh, the fog thing was basic Wii design choice. That's why the HD version was kind of questionable during release. You had to do a side-by-side comparison to tell the difference. Otherwise, people thought it was placebo. I think even with Persona 3, while the most casual about it, a lot of the bigger story moments kind of rely on you having a connection with the cast, which they establish via social links. So if you just do the story and skip a lot of that, you're going to have quite a few moments of that sucks for you guys, I guess. I don't. I Spirit Tracks. Thank you. That was Spirit Tracks. I want to say something that I think is going to be kind of a hot take. I think could, like, I'm not used to doing that. If you can't get me to care about your characters during the main story, I don't know why it's my responsibility to care. If you tell me a story and in the story you should have moments. The story should be interesting. The characters should feel relevant. There should be character moments that are tied to the main adventure that you have. You can have moments that are in side quests or in social links or story interactions. But if you're telling me that I'm going to get to the end of a game or that I'm going to get to an important moment in a game, and if I don't do a whole bunch of side quests and social links, I'm not going to care about that moment, I feel that you failed as a story writer. I feel that I got to the end of that game. If I get to the end of if I get to a specific point in Final Fantasy VII and I don't care what happens to a specific character, why is that my fault that I didn't do all of the stuff that you admit is optional? This is something that we've talked about before. If I have to do it, then it's not optional. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the idea that they have these moments, but if you don't do the social links, you're not going to care. Then you failed. Then you failed as a story writer, because I have played many games that don't have those kinds of moments, and I can guarantee you I cared about what was happening to those characters. I cared about what was happening to the characters in Final Fantasy VII. I cared about Edge losing his parents in 4. I cared about these moments. I cared in Xenoblade Chronicles about I cared about Xenoblade Chronicles about something that happens to a character, and I cared early on. Something happens to a character and I was mad. I was upset. They through interactions that are not tied to any side quests or anything, they made me care for a character, and I was pissed off at what happened. Did I not get furious? Spoiler alert for God of War Ragnarok here. Did I not get furious about what happened to Brock? Did I do a whole bunch of side quests? Did I have tea parties with him and saunas with him? Did I do all of that to make me care? No. Through interactions in the story or things that were right there, right? It's right next to it. I didn't have to go out of my way for it. All of those interactions made me care enough about that character. Bear in mind, I also had 2 games worth of that character, right? No, he was in both games, right? And when that happened, I was upset. I was angry. And I didn't have to have 30 tea parties with him to do that. That is good writing. That is good writing for you to care about a character like that. And if you tell me that I'm not going to care unless we play mini games together, I feel like you failed as a writer. I feel like, and I don't mean to crap on writers directly, but I feel like as a story, as a character moment in a story, I think you failed. I should care. I should care no matter what. Hold on, let me go back up. I like the romantic little back and forth with them in that for some reason. The saturation and color contrast in TP did get raised a lot in the remaster, which I never played the remaster. That's why I've said that if I ever go back to Twilight Princess, I want to get the Wii U version and I want to try that version. I don't think it's a hot take. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Link, and Zelda is great too. My joke being, we had to remind and push you to bond with Edelgard. You only push Petra for the main route for your FE run, and I had no problem doing that. And you have a cast of about 5-ish party members in P3 to bond enough with, so that's good. That was also one of the reasons in Three Houses that I didn't really bond with everybody, is because I had like 30 characters in that game, and I didn't recruit everybody. I didn't recruit I didn't recruit more than half the people in that game. Jagan Tech, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. We can't talk about Square in about. Xenoblade as a franchise does a good job making character moments integral to the main plot. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. They're supposed to be interesting to the. It's one of the reasons I'm not really a big fan of games that have too large of a cast. I do think that's a problem that I do have with certain types of games. I do think there are games out there that there's just too many characters, and because there are so many characters. And to be honest with you, if I'm being totally honest with you, you know, it's a game that's kind of guilty of that. Unicorn Overlord. Unicorn Overlord has a bunch of characters that I very much enjoyed, but for the most part, it is bogged down with characters. There's a lot. There's more. Here's a problem with a game like this. At max, you have 10 units, each unit with 5 characters. I got every character in that game, and I think I have about 20 characters that I cannot put on a team. I think I have about 70 characters. I don't connect with those characters, especially the ones you get late game. Once you get to a certain point, and you start collecting characters that you're just not going to use, I don't care. A later Flash, have a good one. Thank you again, Flash. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The ultimate point is you also don't like that kind of storytelling. To be honest, I'm with you. As we can tell from many social links, is an accepted storytelling method. For many, it is. Yeah, for many, it is. I'm talking about me. I know that there's a lot of people out there that love that. Like I flat out admitted that there's a lot of people who they have played Persona 5 multiple times. I couldn't get through it once so far. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just talking about me. I was talking about Persona 3. The ending I had spoiled for me a while ago. It's part of the reason I never finished it in the past, along with just being cursed. But I'm glad I picked it up again and did it again. And the story and ending has made me change my mind from I'm not bothering with the DLC to I will be paying for the bundle. I'm not ready for it to be over, and I can't wait for September now. That's always a good thing. I think that there's no better hallmark for your game than to get to the end of the story and say, I want to keep playing this game. I think that that's one of the best things you can do with a game. It's that's one of the best things that somebody can say about a game that you make. If you make a game and someone plays it and said, yes, I played it, I did everything there is to do, and I want to keep playing it, I think that that's a great thing. I think that's one of the best things you can have somebody say. The Blue Exorcist scene I'm looking for is in episode 2. All I can find on YouTube was some of the reaction videos. I'm not going to link Crunchyroll. No. But it is on Crunchyroll. All right. I just reestablished my Crunchyroll. So I had it on my I got someone gifted me a new TV, their old TV again, but this TV has apps and stuff, so now I can go back to watching more Crunchyroll stuff. By the way, Dragon, I know that I think you were into this. I don't know about anybody else. Laid Back Camp has 4 episodes for the new episode is up for season 3. Persona 3 I found gives the characters a lot of personality in the story. It makes you want to learn more about your party, and even without I feel you can still feel for those characters without the socials. Hell, you can only social link with the female teammates, but some of the hardest hitters were the male teammate. Oh, wait, what? You can only social link with the female teammates, but some of the hardest hitters were with the male teammates. So you can only do social links with the female characters, but the story beats that are in the beats with the male characters that are in the story were better. That's interesting. Well, I love the journey. It was solely the last moment of that, and that ending changed my mind too. Oh, maybe I will play it. We can barely get you to bond with 2 people, 1 integral to the plot. I don't think you'd bond with 5, and that's not including the rest of the cast that P3 wants you to bond with. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. That was me with RDR2 because the story just breaks your soul. Persona 4 is still my favorite. I've beaten it so many times. Side note, on the off chance I ever stream again, I now have the NFL draft chime in my soundboard because that sound will be stuck in my head for what's the NFL draft chime? You said NFL, and my first thought was but I think that's like ESPN or something, right? You can only romance the females. Like story segments, yeah, the things that hit hardest were with the half of the team you can't social link with. Oh, that's kind of weird. I wonder if that's why you can't social link with them. Red Dead 2 has one of the saddest endings I can think of. Too bad it's all cowboy stuff. I'm telling you. Oh, excuse me. I don't really have any other. I could have sworn there was something that. I'm still not really gonna. I just don't like cowboy stuff. I like the cowboy aesthetic. Like the Western cowboy aesthetic movies and TV shows and games and whatnot. I've just never been I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the only time I ever really liked cowboy stuff was Back to the Future 3, and there were a couple of movies a long time ago called Young Guns 1 and 2. That was the only time I ever really enjoyed anything that was sort of cowboy Western aesthetic. Other than that, I've just never really been a big fan. Cowboys and pirates? What would I rather? Pirates. If I had to engage in something, pirates. I feel like pirates, like, I feel like I give pirates a bad rap. I feel like I come across as not liking pirate stuff more than I actually do or don't. I definitely like pirate stuff more than I like cowboy stuff, but pirates, I don't know. I think my problem with pirates is that pirates are the heroes, and by definition, they're not the heroes. Like, that's kind of my problem with pirates as an aesthetic, is that normally it's we're swashbuckling, adventuring pirates. All right, but that means you're villains. That right? That right? Like, can we? I know a good pirate never steals, which is missing the point entirely. That's always my sort of issue with pirate culture is like the pirate aesthetic. It's just that the pirates, if you want to say sailing, fine, but pirates specifically are the bad guys. All right, yeah, I got the chime here. Hold on. So does this? That's great. That's like, now I need that. Jerf, did you ever see this? It's Key and Peele. It's the segment that they would do where they were the football players, and they're like it's like the college football players doing the announcements, and they're like the introductions. They're introducing themselves, but then they have like they get consistently more weird, and they have like these weird names and their sort of weird delivery of what they're doing. All right, now I just think of that. Pirates are anti-heroes. They're thieves at the end of the day, but they still do heroic things. Like I know that's Kia. I know that's supposed to be the point, but first of all, I don't think anybody realizes how bad pirates were. Right? Like, if you watch the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, there are a few moments in there where you think, wow, if this were a different kind of movie, this scene might have gone a lot different. Bobby Boberson, West North Dakota State University of the South. Like, I love that. Those character intros are great. To be fair, One Piece of Straw Hats acknowledge that they're criminals and don't want to be called heroes. Yeah, I guess that's the best way you can sell me on pirate stuff is if they're battling other pirates. Then you know what? Then it becomes something like Sons of Anarchy, where Sons of Anarchy you were rooting for the Sons, right? You were rooting for the Sons of Anarchy. But they were a motorcycle gang. They were violent, they were criminals, they were engaged in criminal activity. But their primary villains of the show were other gangs. So when there's a violent episode and they gun somebody down, they were also gunning down a criminal. So like, okay, this is criminals versus criminals. I kind of get it. My problem is when you start to turn them into the heroes and you start to think that they're the good guys doing things. And it's like, no, they're the bad guys doing bad things. They're just battling other bad guys who are trying to be worse. Yeah, pirates were not the good guys. Biggest joke reason not getting Persona 3 after 2 years, Atlas will release Persona 3 Destiny, the true complete edition, and Dragoon, and it'll still be missing something from the PSP version of the game. Also, to be honest, you shouldn't base your idea on pirates on... No, but it's everything. That's the thing, is that... Well, I think you're just saying in general. Yeah, like, that's my problem, is that it's not just Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's pirate stuff in general. Pirates are always the heroes. Or often the heroes. And they're really not. I don't think pirates I don't think pirates modern day, I don't think pirates are treated enough like the villains. I think that they're very often treated like either the heroes or the anti-heroes where they're battling other pirates. So ultimately they're the heroes. The one that, in the end, the one that you're rooting for is a pirate. Pirate behavior in that movie is way inaccurate. You might enjoy Black Sails. Maybe. Is this a good time to bring up Batman? Look, on One Piece, pirates are bad, and they know that, but the government is way worse. Honestly, yeah. So, like in that situation, Jerf, then you kind of get by on me, right? And not to mention, One Piece anime. It's the whole aesthetic is very weird. It's so unrealistic that it kind of helps. Luffy is probably the only non-scumbag in the Straw Hats. The rest of them are kind of assholes. What was there was something that somebody... Oh, the stream top. Hold on. Oh, this, just very quick. This, apparently Alien Rogue Incursion there's a trailer out for, it's going to be for PSVR 2, Steam VR, MetaQuest 3 this holiday. A VR, Alien game sounds amazing, by the way. Oh, BlizzCon got canceled. Yeah, we can chat about that for a little bit. I mean, there isn't really... It's funny because they had a BlizzCon last year, didn't they? Didn't they have a BlizzCon? I'm actually I'm glad you brought that up because I'm kind of confused about something with that. This year's more that while pirates were a-holes most often, people of the time were also massive a-holes who kill people in the street for getting them dirty. I mean, and Dragoon, isn't that how cowboy culture is depicted? How dare you knock over my whiskey? All right, let's take this outside. And then somebody dies. And like, that's how cowboy culture is treated. Isn't that the right? We're showdown. I see you at high noon. Like, buddy, I stepped on your boot. And I said, I'm sorry. We have to kill each other over it? Separate fiction from nonfiction, Vegeta in real life would be a terrible person. But in the anime, he's the only one with an interesting character arc. Yeah, except Kia. As long as you overlook that planet that he destroyed at the beginning of the movie. Oh, but there was also some other thing going on with that planet. So it turns out that he wasn't really the villain, but he didn't know about that. So in Vegeta's eyes, he was killing a planet full of innocent people. So tomato. Most of them are jerks in their own way. Do you see how Nami is sometimes? Actually, cowboys were actually super tame. The idea of Western cowboys are 100% fiction. They were farmhands. But that's my point, is that they're not in media. That's not the case. There is some of that. There are cowboy things out there. If you watch something like Yellowstone, for instance, they're not having showdowns every other week. But typically, the cowboy culture, when most people think of cowboy movies, they don't think of that. They don't think of farmhands doing backbreaking labor. They think of shootouts, and they think of the Wild West. There you go. That's probably the best way to say it. It's not so much cowboy culture that I'm not a fan of. It's the Wild West. The Wild West aesthetic is what I don't like. I feel like that's a much more succinct way to say it. That's what I'm not a big fan of. Sort of like pirates. Pirates are the same thing. It's not the sailing culture of the time. It's not the time period and the dress and the thing that's the things that they're doing. It is pirate culture specifically that I don't like. It has nothing to do with the time period and the activity of sailing. It has everything to do with pirates being the heroes. Wild West is what I don't like. Talking about epic westerns or spaghetti, all of them. All of them. Listen, you say spaghetti westerns. I grew up watching like what was it? Was he called not the Lone Ranger? I was gonna say the Rifleman. The Rifleman. My mom used to love that show. It was called The Rifleman, and there was the Lone Ranger was more. The Lone Ranger was more like that, right? The Lone Ranger was definitely more spaghetti western sort of nonsense like that. I feel like the Lone Ranger was kind of made with kids in mind. There was a show called The Rifleman, and the guy who was the I'm trying to think of the guy, because the show always opened up the same way. The intro of the show was he had one of those you ever seen the like a Remington rifle where what's it called, lever action where you fire and then you have to pull the thing down. You have to basically push it down and pull it back up and then you shoot it again. So the show would open up and he would like unload, right? He would do the whole thing and it was impressive. And they would say The Rifleman, and I think it was Chuck Connors. I think Chuck Connors was the star of that show. That is like, oh man, these cowpokes are on our lawn and they're trying to jump your claim. They're trying to jump your claim, and you shoot them dead. It's like, what? Is this how it really was? Is this that's the depiction that you grow up with Wild West Western things? Is that constantly bad things were happening and they were getting killed for it? It's like that. I don't know. That's not. Is that the hero? I don't know. I guess at least in those shows they were protecting their family and their homestead. Well, yeah, assuming that's what it was. But when you get into a poker fight and you take it outside and you shoot somebody down, I mean, is that really worth it? I always feel like a fuddy-duddy when I talk about that stuff. Like, why are they killing each other, right? I feel like the people that complain about video games. Why do they have to kill each other for it to be enjoyable? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of get it now. Welcome to Studying History Back in College. It takes the fun out of a lot of stuff, but creates new fun when you look at what actually happened. Yeah, it's like much more interesting that way. Right, I'm more when you show me a Wild West, like a Wild Western, and it starts out and they're living on the farm, right? They've got the homestead and they wake up and they show you the farm life. You wake up and you go and you feed the animals and you got to dig some holes for a new post because the storm blew down the last fence. So you got to put that up. And then here comes old man Jenkins from down the road. His cow had a baby and he wants to see if you could take this new calf off his hand. Like, and I look at that and I'm like, I just kind of want to keep watching that show. Is that weird? Has YouTube trained me to just want to watch a 25-30 minute video about what that guy's doing that day? I don't need claim jumpers to show up and then he has to defend his homestead. Yeah, wasn't that Bonanza? That was so much more interesting to me. No, stuff happened in Bonanza. I think Ponderosa, or is Bonanza what I'm thinking of? Is that where the Ponderosa was? What was the show that had the Ponderosa? Bonanza. That was another one that had like a funny intro. Bonanza TV series. Wasn't there another one called Ponderosa? And I think that was a restaurant too. Yeah, there's a Ponderosa and Bonanza Steakhouse. Yeah, give me Western slice of life. Maybe that's where my slice of life love began. Ponderosa TV show? Yeah, I wanted a Western slice of life. Bonanza was like Wild West SWAT. There was action, but the community plot line is 100 times more. Yeah, like that's so much more interesting. You know what wasn't? You know what wasn't a bad show like that? This is a show that I'm to be honest, I'm kind of surprised it never saw some sort of revival or something. Unless it didn't, I just didn't notice it, which I wouldn't have noticed it because of the cowboy nature of it. Little House on the Prairie. I think Little House was probably a little bit closer to something I would have liked to see.
Subscribe to your newsletter.
I am Grayson Rogers. Thank you so much for the follow. Very much appreciate that. But the pirate thing, the reason they're often able to be played as heroes is because realistically most pirates weren't really villains. It was an industry. In fact, many happily turned into privateers and pirates for pay by the government, and many, like Captain Morgan, retired stupid rich as a governor and drunk. That's why many things portray pirates as able to not be the bad guys. Yeah, I think it was Ponderosa. I think Ponderosa was, the one with like little. What were the characters? They were the Cartwrights. Yeah, Ben Hoss and Lil Joe. Yeah, that was Ponderosa. Like that was fine. I thought that was okay. But Little House on the Prairie was one that I remember my mom watching. I was remember the end of that show. They like blew up the town because they didn't want the evil people to get it or something. So they blew up all the buildings. Yeah, that's why I don't like the Wild West sort of stuff. I just kind of like, and I don't hate it. I'm not like you're wrong for watching it. I'm just like it's just not really for me. I feel the same way about people who don't like anime. Some people just don't like it. They don't like the wild nature of it. They don't like the kookiness and the craziness. A lot of villains from the past were more neutral than we think. Like the only reason there were pirates and Wild West is because the world was overall Yeah, the world was terrible back then. It was horrible. Not a Western, but we used to watch the Waltons. Oh, Waltons. Oh, the Waltons was like... Waltons was a little too wholesome for me, right? I think... This is the Waltons. The Waltons, I think, were a little too wholesome for me. Yeah, that was a little too much. They were a little too drama. I wasn't really, and to be fair, when I was a kid, I probably wouldn't have cared either way. But I did like Little House when I was a kid. So, but like, I think the Waltons might have been a little bit too. If I'm remembering the show correctly, I think it was a little too close to like a soap opera, and I think that might have been a little too much. Never been a fan of Western myself because I think the dessert is a boring setting. Dessert is the best part of the meal, though. You probably mean desert, though. Yeah, and it's always the desert. Like it's always so bland. It's like watching any TV show. It's like watching any American-made TV show that exists in Mexico, right? any American-made TV show that happens in Mexico, there's always that brown filter over everything. It's like, it's not actually like that, right? It's one S. One S is the desert. Two S's is dessert. Kia, think of it this way. The second S is for sweets. My godmom is into Italian and French movies, so I got to watch a lot of Westerns. Ooh, spaghetti Westerns when I watched American Westerns, and I couldn't get that into them. They love their sepia filter for Mexican settings. They really do. Many pirates were infamous for made-up reasons, typically the government trying to scare people. Self-made is also self-made to scare the Navy off. Blackbeard was famous for lighting soot candles in hoops woven in his beard. In hair, so he looked like a demon giving off smoke. That explains why What's-His-Face played him extremely well in the fourth Pirates movie. I've been on the internet for too long. I forgot how to spell things. See, I feel like the internet would help because you got to type things out. I feel like that. The Kia, I think the problem with the internet when it comes to that sort of thing is that people forgot. I feel like there was a time there where people forgot how to spell the word you, like you or me. Because they just kept writing the letter U. It's like, could you just, I know it's two more letters. Could you just spell it out? Just say you. Like YOU. That's where you get to the point where like people are gonna forget how to spell that word, and I'm kind of concerned about society at that point. All right, I'm gonna jump topics here and talk a little bit about BlizzCon. So I may need your help with this one. I don't know who here really follows this stuff. I often mention WoW a little bit. I'm still saying it sucks. 5 different ways to spell. Oh, I'm still saying there sucks. There is 5 different ways to spell it. So they apparently they canceled BlizzCon for this year. I was pretty sure they had one last year. I think they did. One thing I hate, which is more in online games, but people that don't type yes, ask if ready to go and they just type why. My brain wants to answer like, yeah. What do you mean why? Because I want to get started. There you go, Lilac. Everybody ready? Why? Because I want to get started. It's like, no, I'm saying yes. But then say yes. Loki, hope the WoW on Xbox rumors are true. Got blue milk? Should I have blue milk? I really hope WoW comes. I mean, I've talked before about the idea of WoW becoming a single player game. I think that would be fantastic. I want to say that this isn't really a surprise that they would cancel BlizzCon. If for no other reason, just for the controversy, but if they had one last year in November, I think it would have been. It feels like if you were going to cancel any one of them because of controversies, I feel like it would have been last year's. But maybe last year's was kind of already planned out and it was underway, so it was too early. Oh, there you go. I just see that. Whoa. Ah, flip. Now I got to go to the supermarket. Oh, man. I gotta get True Moo blue milk, and I gotta get they have Capri Suns with Mario Kart 8 and Animal Crossing on the pouches, so I gotta get those too. For no reason. I would also like Warcraft 4. I'm shocked Blizzard even cares about controversies. Maybe it's Microsoft. Well, one of the reasons that people were saying was that it's because they don't have anything to show. Like, there's no reason. But the thing is, BlizzCon was never just about that. BlizzCon, from my experience, was never just about what are we going to show. It was that wasn't they would have announcements and stuff there, but BlizzCon was always just about celebrating the stuff that already existed. And I wonder if maybe the controversies do have something to do with it. I wonder if, because they did have a BlizzCon last year, I wonder if it's let me see what attendance was, because maybe last year's BlizzCon tanked. And they said, you know what? If we have nothing to show and people aren't going to show up, we're just not going to do it. 2023. BlizzCon 2023 attendance. Attendance numbers. I'm seeing a bunch of that. It was a disaster. Inside BlizzCon's mega event. Tens of thousands, main arena. Oh, that's the. What am I on the Sun website for? I'm not looking at that thing. So it's a total disaster. I'm not seeing attendance numbers. Let me see here. Because I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Close that. I mean, there's tons of stuff here that keep popping up about how it was bad. Doesn't say. I can't find anything that's a solid number. But yeah, so I wonder if the fact that they had one last year was part of it. If there was something that they didn't like. As far as stuff to show, I think that they should have stuff to show, right? Don't we? When's the new expansion? When is the War Within for WoW? I feel like there's tons of, like, the whole World Soul Saga stuff. I feel like there's a lot to talk about with that. WoW War Within. Release date. Just says 2020. Yeah, I mean, this says 2024, and it's probably going to be sometime in November. Tempest, what's going on? So they definitely have stuff to show. I saw a lot of people saying that, like, oh, they don't have anything to show. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. We still have tons of stuff to see with the World Soul Saga. The War Within isn't even out yet. Diablo, I don't know what they're going to do with Diablo. I think Diablo Immortal is still going. Diablo 4, I mean, if they do some sort of DLC, I would like for them to have like an offline mode. You guys told me that you can't play that game offline, so I would really like to see that. Seems like a good time to release StarCraft. Seems like a good time. Here's an idea that you can do. Blizzard, Activision, if anybody's paying attention there, maybe it's time to start taking advantage of the fact that you're on Xbox, and it's time to start bringing some of these things back. How about a Warcraft trilogy? How about the Warcraft complete trilogy on Xbox? Right? One package, 3 full games with the expansions. You give me orcs and humans and Dark Portal. Right? It was Warcraft 2 was there was Warcraft 2 and there was Dark Portal, I think it was what it was called. And then Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne stuff. You give people that and they'll go crazy for it. Maybe it's time to start talking about StarCraft again. Maybe it's time to do something, like I said, you can add a little something to Diablo 4, maybe a little DLC, maybe offline mode, right? There's stuff that you can do that you can talk about there that is very Blizzard oriented, not to mention the fact that even if you don't really announce things, a lot of the time those conventions are just about people enjoying it. They just want to go and they want to look up merch and they want to have the huge cosplay contest and they want to do a bunch of stuff. If you need to scale down the event, scale down the event. But why? I don't know. I question why you would cancel something like that. E3, for as much as we crap on E3, we like it and we like the format of, having a week in June. I always talk about that. I always talk about how I love that there's a week in June where we can all get excited about the stuff that gets announced during what used to be E3. The problem with E3 was the structure of it, was the in-person nature of it, was the expansion of it all that got to the point where it was not only unnecessary, but at some point it was even unsafe. There were a whole bunch of controversies and problems and stuff that happened IRL with that event. But the act of having a week where you could enjoy that stuff was always a good idea. BlizzCon is a good idea. It's a good thing to have. And that's something very unique for the fans, that they can get together and they can enjoy themselves with it. So I feel like it doesn't need to be this, we don't have any announcements, which is not confirmed. It's just what people were saying. But we don't have any announcements, so they're going to cancel BlizzCon. I don't know that that's necessary. Not that they can't have announcements. If they want to do stuff, they can. There's tons of stuff that they can do with their library. How about fixing Overwatch? Blizzard being Blizzard. SGDQ game list? Is there an SGDQ game list? I love that stuff. I love SGDQ and AGDQ, but I never watch it as much as I probably... I never watch it as much as I think I like. To get back to fiction versus non-fiction for a second, in real life, Anakin Skywalker would be awful, but in fiction, I love Anakin as a character. Yeah, I mean, Anakin is a terrific character that had a lot of tragedy, and it was easy to enjoy his journey. Darth Vader was a monster and a tyrant and a vile character who, in every other situation outside of the actual Star Wars knowledge, is 100% the villain. For as much sympathy as I have for everything that Anakin Skywalker went through, Darth Vader is the villain. That's it. You know what's another one that I talk about that with? Azula in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Great character. Terrific character. Wonderful performance, wonderful writing of the. I'm more talking about the story arc of the character. Wonderful character. Very rough situation growing up, right? She idolized her father, who idolized his son. So she fought for his attention, and she was the son that her father would have wanted, but he didn't care because she wasn't his son. The mom didn't like her because she was a vile person, right? Azula was terrible, and she was terrible partially because she was terrible, but she was terrible because, that's what she learned. And I have sympathy for her for that. But as she got older, she needed to make her own decisions in her life. And as she got older, and throughout the situations that we saw in that show, she had plenty of opportunity to stop being a terrible person, and she chose not to. She didn't want to. She eventually became a pure villain. Yes, she had a rough backstory. She was treated a certain way. It was terrible. There were a lot of things that happened. There were a lot of circumstances that made her the person that she was. But ultimately, there are a lot of circumstances that make a lot of people what they are. And in the end, they have to make that decision about who they are as a person. And if they choose to be a-holes, then you get treated like one. And that's it. And you're the villain. And there's no question about it. If you're a parent who wants to share your games with your kids, start with Nintendo. Like Thanos or someone else. What sells Azula is how she chooses to keep following her path. Yeah, that final haircut. The last moments with her were just terrific. Not really. It's a bit odd how Azula's backstory is one of a very self-destructive person that suddenly snapped into acting. See, I don't think so. I would argue that she's been the villain the entire time. Her personality was always villainous. She liked two people. There were two people that she liked, were Mei and Ty Lee. That's who she liked. Everybody else, she treated like crap. And she got unhinged when she lost them as friends. But she treated everybody like crap, except her father. She hated Uncle Iroh. She hated her mom. She hated Zuko. I think she hated Zuko the most because Zuko got her father's attention, which is what she wanted. She was a villain from a very young age. And you can go back and forth on whether or not she became that as a kid or she was turned into that as a kid. But she was a villain. But older, when she was given opportunities, when she was taught to understand why she was not a good person, she chose to remain a bad person. And you're a villain after that. I have no sympathy for you. You've chosen to be the bad guy. Darth Vader, kid slave, right? Mom killed, taken by the Jedi Order, literally gambled away in the Jedi Order to get into the Jedi Order. Had an entire series of arcs that explained why his entire world was taken from him. Wasn't allowed to be happy with his family, with both his mom and then with Padme. Couldn't be with Padme because he couldn't do that and be loyal to the Jedi Order. You have all of these situations. You had his Padawan was basically taken from him. The Order was partially he was lied to, and partially he realized the truth is that the Order wasn't exactly what he thought it was going to be. Like everything about his world collapsed around him. We saw that. That's what makes him such an interesting and tragic character. But he was still the villain. And we didn't really have enough to really show you how vile he was outside of the comics. I think the comics had a lot of moments, but there wasn't a lot in the movies and TV shows to really show you how vile he was. And then you see stuff like in Obi-Wan. There's a great scene in Obi-Wan where he shows up to the town and I think he's looking for Obi-Wan in that moment. And then he kills somebody. He drags them through the street, right? He's dragging the one person and he's like killing other people as he's doing it. And then he kills that. He was the most brutal, I think. And you can say that the hallway scene in Rogue One was the most brutal, or it was the most cinematic moment. But I don't think he was ever as villainous and as dangerous as he felt in that moment in the Obi-Wan scene. That's who he became. You can sit there and you can have sympathy for him for everything that happened before, but ultimately he was a villain. He was a bad guy. Azula was a bad guy. And they chose to do that. At some point, they decided, they knew that they didn't have to be that person anymore, and they did it anyway. Hold on. I thought Blizzard, we were talking about BlizzCon. Yeah, so back to BlizzCon. Speaking of villains, Blizzard, huh? I thought Blizzard is going to go add offline to Diablo 4. Yeah, I doubt it, but with that and Immortal, they seem to have doubled down on it's not us, it's the players who are wrong. AMAs they had and then deleted show a studio that resents and looks down on its players. But they are trying to. Well, I would hope that they're making some changes up top to try and change all of that, right? Isn't the main villain gone? Azula is just a bad end of a story. Yeah, she is a victim. I'm saying her backstory was not. Oh, you're saying her backstory was not rough. I think it's a little rough. I think it's I think it's rough in the sense that you. In the parent situation, I think a lot of the time when you look at situations where they had a rough childhood, it usually comes down to the parent situation. And the parent situation for her was she was her father's kid. She wanted to be just like him. She wanted his attention. She wanted his affection. And instead, he put his affections onto his son, who was clearly not up to the challenge. He was not better for the father than she was. She was a better match for the father, and she wanted that, and she was denied that. And then in being who she was as a kid, and in that chase for her father's affection, she lost her mother. So in the end, she grew up with parents. Azula grew up with parents that she felt hated her. She didn't think that her father even looked at her enough, and she thought that her mom hated her, which she was kind of right. She really didn't like her that much.
You're right. Intriguing to me.
Dello plays 93. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. What makes Azula not appear villainous is that in the society she lived in, she was normal, or at least accepted for what she was. It was as she left the Fire Nation, it became clear who she always was. See, no, I think that she was still seen as the villain in the Fire Nation, but they also knew that she was Ozai's daughter, so they weren't going to say anything. She was effectively a mean princess. That's who she was. She was Joffrey, right? She was Joffrey from Game of Thrones. She was a mean princess, but she was a princess, so they put up with it. And it wasn't until she left that she realized, wow, when people don't have to put up with me, they don't like me. And that really, like, when she was in the Fire Nation, there's a reason she had her two friends. There's a reason her two friends were everything to her. It was because nobody was anybody to her besides them. Nobody wanted to be affiliated with her. She was a mean princess, and people put up with it because she was a princess, and that's it. Shola is a villain who had barely any difficulty in her backstory. Yeah, you decide the type of person you are as an adult. She treated Ty Lee like crap. I mean, she definitely bullied the hell out of them. But isn't it sad that she bullied them in a way, but she was also nicer to them than everybody else? Isn't that terrible? The choice was to essentially lose his entire humanity or not, and he gave it up. I didn't realize it as a kid, but now I clearly see that the Fire Nation and Air Nation are just China and Tibet. China in real life is an authoritarian government. I think all four of the nations are related to real life cultures, like IRL, our cultures. Thing we don't talk about, but one could happen. He also could have left the Jedi, and we know many did. But Anakin's loyalty and love prevented him from being willing to make the choice. Yeah, there's so many moments. Like I won't get into the Anakin discussion, but there's so many great moments with him that he had his life torn down around him, and if he would have just left, things would have been better. If he would have left with Ahsoka at the end of season 5 when she left the Order, if he would have chosen to do that, if he left the Order to be with Padme, like, Star Wars is so interesting, and that's because there are those moments, because you had those character moments that were so interesting, and you think you were so close. And I love that about Anakin's story in Star Wars, is that you were so close to a better life. How much is avoided if Anakin in episode 3, if Anakin just runs away with Padme? How much of that, like, even at that point, how much gets avoided? How much is avoided if he leaves with Ahsoka at the end of season 5? What if he refused to leave Tatooine because he didn't want to be away from his mom? What if he went back? The one that I always question with Star Wars is when Watto tells him that it has to be either the boy or the mother. What if Qui-Gon said, because he traded him like for the pod racer or something. It's like, what if Qui-Gon had told him that it's worth it to have them both? Like, oh, the pod racer's worth it, or the winnings are worth it, or something. And what if Anakin got to leave with his mom? What does that change? What changes the story if Anakin has that support system? If this thing that he cared so much about and he spent so much time about, and in episode 2 it caused him so much pain and grief, what if that wasn't a factor? Just that somewhat simple change, because it's not really simple, but how much does that affect the future? It's so interesting. Contrary to people believe, Anakin was loyal to the Jedi and did believe the code. He was also he just also was a guy that couldn't ignore his heart with Padme, and was ultimately the code that was the turning point for him and his fall. And I mean, that's, you know, you have that. We've talked before about that a lot, like how just he had this whole thing. He had Padme, he had Obi-Wan, he had the Jedi, and he had Ahsoka. And over the course of the series, especially at the end of the series, in the end of season 5, and then throughout season 6 and 7, and the third movie, he had that all torn down. He had these things. He lost Ahsoka. He lost Ahsoka to the Jedi Order, who he blamed, rightfully so. And it started to open up his eyes to that. He lost Obi-Wan. I still say that the thing when Obi-Wan pretended to be dead, and he became what was the criminal, Rako Hardeen, when he became that character and Anakin got all crazy because he thought Obi-Wan was dead. I always felt like he looked at that afterwards and felt like he was betrayed by him. I always looked at that as a moment between Anakin and Obi-Wan where he thought that Obi-Wan betrayed him. He didn't trust him. He didn't trust him in that moment with this secret. That Anakin should have been a part of that plan, and he wasn't. And he started to lose Obi-Wan at that point because he started to and maybe this is just inserting my own lore there. It just felt like there was a disconnect. And if you watch the show, if you watch it in order, there's a disconnect after that where they just don't feel as close anymore, and they don't have as much together. And then you have the collapse of the Jedi Order. You have the Order that I've often complained about his thing with Mace Windu, where Mace Windu didn't trust him in episode 3, and he's like, you know, if what you said is true, we'll believe you. And it's just like, but I've been doing this for years, man. Anakin was a part of the Jedi Order, and he was one of their best, and he was great, and he was loyal, and he believed in the message, and they still didn't trust him. He had these support systems around him just torn down bit by bit, and then in the end, he thought that they were the bad guys. He was an idiot for believing Palpatine, but he really did legitimately think this was all a plan, and they suckered everybody into taking over. The problem, of course, then, was when he found out that wasn't true, he stayed a jerk anyway. So that's why he's the villain. Because when he found out the truth, and he could have put 2 and 2 together and realized, hey, maybe this is not entirely on the up and up, he didn't change his opinion. He still said, yeah, I'm still going to be the bad guy. Darth Vader created the rule of two, caused self-greed, led to the Sith killing each other, and even Sidious wanted it all to himself, considering he tries to kill his apprentice multiple times. He sort of doesn't have to, but he kind of does, right? He didn't want any competition either. I can totally understand why they didn't tell Anakin. Because what was he known for? Breaking the rules, making exceptions. Anakin would not have been someone to rely on a secret mission or to keep it a secret. We say they didn't trust him, but he wasn't really trustworthy. He himself was a hypocrite. He himself was a hypocrite. Logan, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Subscribe for 30 months. Very much appreciate that. A year after it released, I finally finished my first playthrough of Resident Evil 4. Results in follower form. I haven't. That's the B. Okay, I've been looking at this picture of Logan for a little bit now. That's the B in Resident Evil 4. Congratulations, and thank you so much for the sub. You can argue with Anakin's methods, but I don't think that there was any arguing that his goal was always for the Jedi Order. You can argue that, yeah, he would go off and spin off and do his own thing in the missions and stuff, but he was always trying to complete the mission. That was always his goal. He never had anything underhanded going on against the Jedi. He did things his own way, but he was always doing it for the mission. So I don't think there's any reason to believe that he wouldn't have gone along with Obi-Wan's plan for the mission. I would argue that there's no evidence that he would have done that. There's no evidence that he would have gone rogue and compromised the mission. He would not have put his friend in danger. He was lied to, and he was hurt by that, and he was rightfully hurt by that. Even when I first saw that episode, I was like, kind of sucks they're not telling him. Hold on. Sidious Tamal, and you are no longer my apprentice. You have been replaced. I want to say it was nature versus nurture. I want to say Zuko chose to redeem himself, while Azula never stopped fighting for her father's approval, because the path they chose, Zuko's life got better, while Azula got lost in her rage. She turned into a rage monster by the end. He found that that the Jedi and the Sith really weren't that far apart when Windu was ready to execute Palpatine. Yeah, the whole he's too dangerous to be left alive thing. Meanwhile, Palpatine betrayed Dooku by getting Anakin to execute him because he was too dangerous. Yeah, his eyes started to open up to the truth. His eyes started to open up that there wasn't really much of a difference. That each of them were controlling in their own way. The whole existence of the council was a breaking of the rules for the Jedi. I mean, the involvement of them in the war and the involvement in all of that. Most of the Jedi Order that you see in here, like in the prequel times and the modern times and even in the High Republic times, I would argue that all of that was against the rules. I didn't read or see anything from High Republic, so I don't really know. I'm not too familiar with what their role is at that time, but the idea that they would work with the government, it just seems like it's kind of against the rules. It seems like it's not really the idea of balance with the Force is not with the Jedi or the Sith. It's not. It's why the gray Jedi, it's why the ones in the middle are always the most powerful. It's why Qui-Gon was better. It's why Luke is one of the stronger ones. Even Yoda. I mean, Yoda's kind of anomalous, but even Yoda had a ridiculous dark side. So the ones that are the strongest are always the ones that embrace the balance. 30 hours, 40 minutes is the time for you to beat. For Resident Evil, see, that's tough, Logan, because I'm gonna play it on stream, and I have all my stream problems that I always complain about. So Dooku didn't spill the beans there, and then when Palpatine betrayed him, the plan Dooku was told was kidnap Palps. When the Jedi come, put on a show, be taken into custody, and Palpatine would free Dooku so he could take them down from the inside, which was a lie. That was blatantly a lie. That can be said about the entire council. They were no longer Jedi. They were soldiers. Yeah. We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers. You're soldiers. You're not soldiers. You're generals. That's the problem, is that every every Jedi who became a master was considered some sort of general or a commander, and they were given a bunch of soldiers. That's not your job. That was never your job. It never should have been. But in doing it his way, he laughed in the face of the rules, but then wanted to know why those same rules he claimed to believe in suddenly were held against him and kept him from moving up. No, but even then, I mean, you look at somebody like, see, if Anakin's future was anything in the Jedi Order, it was, Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon was Anakin's future in the Jedi. He was a master. He was very good. He was clearly very loyal to the Jedi and to their cause, but because he went off on his own, because he spoke his mind, because he did his own thing, he was not on the council. He had everything that you would need to be on the council, and he wasn't, because he would do things his own way. That was Anakin. That's why, God, I mean, I said, like, what if Anakin's mom went with him when he went with the Jedi? What if Obi-Wan dies and Qui-Gon is the one that survives and trains Anakin? What if he teaches him properly how to embrace both sides of the Force, or to at least acknowledge the other side of the Force, not to cower away from that side of himself, or to treat it like it's wrong? Like how much better does, and I love Obi-Wan, but how much better does Anakin get trained if Qui-Gon trains him? I think it's much better. I think ultimately he learns what he has to do to be happy and to do his mission and to complete and to live a good life. Anakin was a great soldier, but a pretty terrible Jedi. But then you could argue, what is a good Jedi? Because Dragoon, a good Jedi, the way they trained them, a good Jedi who learns to disconnect from the things that can cause you weakness, right? Who learns to reject connection and to reject emotion and love. A good Jedi is Luminara, and she was terrible. Luminara was a great Jedi. She very well embodied a lot of the messages of the Jedi. And she would have let her Padawan die immediately. She almost let her Padawan die with no remorse. And that's terrible. But she was a great Jedi because she embraced the idea that you're not supposed to connect. You're not supposed to maintain a connection. And she had all of those ideals. And she was terrible. That's not a good Jedi. That's the point, is that the Jedi Order and the way that they taught them was flawed. It was always flawed. The version of the Jedi that we knew was a mistake, because they did the same thing that the Sith did. It's supposed to be balanced. You're not supposed to reject one side. You're supposed to embrace both sides. Let's turn into a Star Wars thing. When in reality, that's the entire council. The only difference that Anakin was making questions and going beyond the black and white of the so-called balanced council that was filled with Jedi that kill. He's seen wrong because of narrative purposes. The Star Wars, what if, I want to see if Qui-Gon didn't die, because that was the pivotal point for Anakin's demise. I think you beat me to that one there. If Qui-Gon trained him, he would have been able to help Anakin more. Obi-Wan wasn't ready and saw him as a brother more than a Padawan, which was needed. He needed a father, not a friend. There you go. That was Anakin's problem. Anakin's problem was he needed a father, not a friend. And he got a great friend. He got a great brother. But he did not get the father that he needed. He did not get the guidance that he needed from Obi-Wan. Nobody was equipped to give him that guidance. Nobody wanted to give him that guidance. Qui-Gon was the only one that could have done that. I feel like Anakin would definitely end up leaving. Yeah, and Sorcerer, that's a good point. If those lessons that Qui-Gon would have given him, if they really worked on Anakin, there's a good chance that Anakin would have left. there's a good chance that at some point in his Jedi career, Anakin would have said, they're wrong. They are incorrect in what they're doing. Anakin was a hypocrite who, knowing, broke rules, but believed he was exempt from the consequences, and that only counting the publicly known rules he broke. Ignoring being with Padme, murdering the Sand People in vengeance, but he still claimed they let him down. To be fair, the Jedi aren't blameless, but Anakin created his own downfall. I don't know. I think that there were bad choices that he made. I absolutely do think there were bad choices that he made. But I also think he made a lot of those bad choices because of an entire system that was flawed in the first place. I think he was loyal to a system that was already broken. Before he even got there, that system was already broken. The Palpatine's plan to screw over the Jedi and kill them all happened when he was a kid, before they even met him. Right, before we even met Anakin, Palpatine was secretly pulling the strings of the Trade Federation, and he was facilitating all of that so he can take over. It would have probably looked way different. But I mean, around that same time, that's when Sifo Dyas is starting the clone army, right? So all of this stuff was already in the works. This stuff was already going way before Anakin was even there. The whole system was broken. It was a shame, and he was a victim. I feel like Anakin was a victim of a system that on both sides took advantage of him. Palpatine took advantage of him. He created this entire sequence because he knew what he was going to have at the end, which was Anakin. And the Jedi wanted a powerful soldier, right? They wanted the man with the midichlorians. They wanted him. And they did what they had to do. They faked the dice roll in order to get him, which was Qui-Gon's fault. For the Anakin, definitely, again, a good Jedi wouldn't have been involved in a war to begin with. They wouldn't have been soldiers, which ironically probably wouldn't have put them in a position to fight. Well, they weren't at war yet when they found Anakin. The Jedi Council wasn't faultless, but Anakin proved exactly what he would do if he was on the council. And to be honest, he knew that. But I feel like that's a Destiny paradox. Yeah, where everything they questioned about Anakin was the product of their own decisions. In fear. Yeah, you're right. Like he was. No, I don't know. I think he was the way he was because he was the way he was. I think he was definitely like that. I mean, he was like that because if you go back to the first movie. He said that Mom always said that people don't do enough to help each other in the galaxy. That was what he wanted to do. Ever since episode 1, he wanted to help people. And I could follow a path where the reason he was the rule breaker was because he looked at the mission. He said, this is the mission objective. And then he said to himself, with my abilities, what is the best way I can help people? And sometimes helping people isn't just sitting around playing your role. Sometimes helping people is jumping forward and doing something. I love the first episode you're supposed to watch with him when he basically starts fighting, right? They're in the stealth ship and he starts fighting and the trooper tells him, when you serve under General Skywalker, you're always on the offensive. And it's like, yeah, of course. That's what he was. But he was like that because he knew that. He knew what the mission was. He knew what the best way to help people was. Helping people were not going to be helped if he retreated. So he did it. So he went, and that's why I say you can sit there and you can tell me about how he broke the rules, but you will never be able to convince me that he was trying to fail the mission. He was always trying to succeed. He was always trying to help people. He was always trying to win the fight for the good of the people. Sure, he broke the rules, but if he succeeds and nobody gets hurt that's not supposed to get hurt, does it even matter? Does it matter that you don't follow the rules if you win and you save people's lives? It's one of the many hypocrisies of the Jedi Order. For as much as they claim to let go of fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, which, by the way, each of those is a stage of Anakin. They made a lot of their decisions around Anakin training out of fear about the prophecy of Anakin and Anakin's power, right? We don't want to train him to be a Jedi because we think he's going to be too strong. We think he might be the prophesized one, which I still argue that he was the prophesized one. I know there's a lot of back and forth between whether or not he was. I still say he was. Anakin being those stages. Child Anakin is fear. Episode 2 is anger. Episode 3 is hate. Yeah, and Vader was suffering, and he caused suffering for everybody else too. They were not my Jedi, one on the council, but Anakin would have to change his relationship if he followed the actual rules for it. Jedi could have children in marriages. They were forbidden from loving and having attachments, which is why most just avoided it outright. I take accountability for the Star Wars. Hey, I always love me a good Star Wars discussion. What are you talking about? That's why the argument that Anakin was actually right if we go by the logic of bringing balance. Ultimately, there were hundreds of Jedi, only 3 Sith worth a damn. Yeah, I always say that. I always say that Anakin. I say that, and they even say in episode 3 that misread the prophecy was like they think they misunderstood the prophecy, and they never really elaborated on that. And I always thought that that's what it was. I always thought that they thought that Anakin was going to bring balance to the Force. And what they misunderstood was that balance to the Force meant killing a lot of Jedi. And that ended up being what it was. And it did bring balance to the Force. You have some Sith out there and you have some Jedi out there. And that was balance. He definitely was. The problem is that the ones breaking the balance wasn't the villains. Yeah. Too, for Anakin in the war proved their fears. Not only broke the rules, he also encouraged and succeeded in many cases, getting others to happily break the rules, not for the Jedi, but for him. I mean, yeah, there were at points. I mean, that's now. Then you start to talk about the journey of Anakin and where things started to change. Because I don't think Anakin. That was a big problem that people had with Episode 3, where they thought that Anakin's turn was kind of out of nowhere, and to be fair to them back then, all you had was the movie. And it was like, yeah, that was kind of weird that he just sort of turned very quickly. Like, I understood. I knew that. I even back then, I knew there's probably a lot more to this. But for a lot of people, it was kind of weird that it just sort of happened. But when you watch Clone Wars, you realize that it was a systematic thing over time. It was something that slowly but surely he started to see the downfall of the Jedi Order, the downfall of the Republic. He started to see cracks in everything. And then he had, the Ahsoka thing, the Obi-Wan thing. He had these moments where his entire support structure around his life was falling apart. And it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored. And yeah, it's like, that's Anakin. That's that's Anakin, which it's from a storytelling standpoint, right? That's sort of what it is, but yeah, it's bringing balance is such a neutral statement. Hold on. We're going to wrap up here in a second. For me, I think Anakin went through a series of unfortunate events, and the Sith looked more appealing to him at that specific moment. It kind of did. He thought that the Sith were going to be able to save. He thought that the Sith were going to be able to save the one thing left in his life. He was losing his wife. He lost his friend and brother. He lost the Jedi Order, right? They weren't what he thought it was going to be. The only thing he had left was potentially his wife and his family. Actually, yeah, he was losing his wife and he wanted to save her. He wanted to save the one thing he could. He lost his mom. He lost everything. His Padawan, he lost it all. So he wanted to save the one thing, and the Sith told him they could save it. But it seemed, in his anger, he killed her. Somehow she didn't return. It's ironic how all these kind of elements were the most hated thing about Star Wars, about the prequels. And now they're the main reason why the Star Wars discussion at all. Well, again, I think it's fair to say that I think it's fair to point out that the prequels at the time were just the prequels. We didn't have the Clone Wars context. You didn't have the comic context. You didn't have a lot of the stuff that has developed around the prequel era. Now you do have fans that think that the prequel era was their favorite. I've seen polls where they ask which era was the favorite, and I've seen the prequel era win. But that's because the prequel era has been built up incredibly. It's been done incredibly well. Not counting how many exceptions the council publicly made for Anakin. Anakin may not have made Master, but he was the most powerful non-Master in terms of what he was allowed to get away with. And they would excuse he was allowed to do things other Masters were forbidden to do. But he was still the good guy. And there was no question. Like the whole thing about Anakin, the whole thing about Anakin breaking the rules, sure. But in all of that rule breaking, did they ever think he was evil? When he broke the rules, did they ever think for a second that he was the villain? They just didn't like their rules being broken. They didn't like the fact that they established something and he went to the contrary of it. But at no point did they think that he was the bad guy. You know, they thought he could be the bad guy, which is why they didn't want to train him, which is a whole nother trope that I can't stand in any media. Just got a haircut, feeling as fresh as a squid kid. Prequels are always my favorite, but I was the age for the prequels. Even then, I hated episode 2. I'd argue the fact that they didn't give him Master, it was a sign they knew he couldn't be trusted. Well, I would say that they didn't give him Master at the moment, at the moment that happened, like when he became, because they knew he was a spy. Right? Like they were fair to be fair, they were fair to not give him Master at that moment. You're on this council, but we don't grant you the rank of Master. Why not? I mean, you are here because Palpatine pulled some strings, right? You can understand that. But right? I'm not arguing that he shouldn't have been a Master. We can understand that he wasn't a Master because he was on the council because Palpatine pulled some strings, which the fact that they take Palpatine's word to put someone on there, the fact that a non-Jedi had any influence on the Jedi Council was indicative of a gigantic problem. That right there should have told you we have a big issue here. If a non-Jedi can have someone put into this room, that's an issue that they should have taken care of. Yeah, it was all fast-tracked. Yeah, they knew. They didn't know he was a Sith, but they knew he wasn't a Jedi, right? That was why. They knew he was spying. They knew that. Yeah, that's the only reason he didn't get a Master at the time. He was well capable of it. Yeah, that's a legit process, right? You didn't go through the trials, right? He didn't do anything to become a Master. He did a lot of great, cool things, but he didn't actually do the thing that he's supposed to do, which is to go through the trials. And he didn't do it. All right, hold on. We're gonna wrap up here in a second. Sorry, I could keep going on for Star Wars forever, but what a. Oh wait. Oh no, I thought I saw something. He didn't want to save the one thing. He wanted to have everything, Padme, Master rank, all of it. And it slipped through his fingers. Because of him trying to hold it all. He crushed him. Yeah. He tried to hold it all and crushed him. Yeah, I would argue that he was trying to save Padme, obviously. The Master thing, I don't know. I feel like he was pissed off about the Master thing, but I feel like that didn't linger as much. I always felt like even watching that movie, I felt like he was mad about it, and then I never got the feeling later on in that movie that he did anything because he was mad about Master. Go back, if you go back and watch it, I never really watched it. There was no moment where he's like, not make me a Master, huh? I never really felt like that. I felt like he was kind of pissed off at the moment, but then he kind of got it later. Cause then he came back to Mace and he said, listen, Palpatine's the bad guy. Right? When all that happened, he didn't keep it a secret. He didn't talk to Palpatine and oh, well, if I keep your secret, will you make me a Master? He found out that Palpatine was the bad guy. Kind of tried to arrest him, but Palpatine slick-tongued him out of there, right? Not in the gross way. But when he got out of there, the first thing he did was he went to Mace Windu and he said, listen, this is the guy we've been looking for. He's the bad guy. And then what happened? That's such a pivotal moment for me. Because then what happened when he did that? What happened when he went and he said, hey, Palpatine's the bad guy. You're going to need my help. They said, no, we don't trust you. Like, I'm sorry. I know that I've gone back and forth on that point. To me, that's what happens in that moment. Was I have done my duty. I have told you what's going on. That's the bad guy. And Mace Windu told him, if what you said is true, you will have earned my trust. So what you just said was, I don't trust you yet. I don't believe you. You literally just said, if it's true, you'll have earned my trust. So you just told me you don't trust that what I'm telling you is true. I have been here for 15 years, and I have proven myself to be dedicated to the Jedi Order and to our cause, and you are telling me you don't trust me. That always, to me, was the big thing. And yeah, you're right. They knew, going back to my other point, they knew that he was spying on them. But you also had 15 years. You had 15 years of experience with him to know that he would tell you the truth. You don't want to make him a master, that's fine. But when he tells you the big secret, when he spills the tea about what's going on, and you still don't believe him, you're not going to, you were wrong for that. Mace was wrong for that. Alrighty, give me 1 second here. There. 15 years of him proving he wasn't trustworthy. He would lie to the council to complete the mission, but he completed the mission. That's what we'll go back and forth on that forever, Dragoon. He lied to complete the mission, but he completed the mission. He never came across as evil. He never put anybody else in danger that didn't need to be in danger. He was always mission-oriented. He was always focused on saving people. He broke the rules, but he broke the rules for a good reason. He never did anything wrong. He never did anything that was against the Jedi Order. He never did anything that was against the people that caused loss of life or anything like that. He broke the rules, but he always did it for the benefit of good. He always did that. Yeah, but he forgot to file his paperwork. There you go. That's it. Evil. Yeah, he killed a lot of people in the Clone Wars. I'll give you that one. Who will be the first to strike down and brand themselves a cold-blooded killer? What? And that's a good moment right there. Like, he did that, and he's like, yeah, but he was gonna blow up the ship. It's like, yeah, he's kind of right. Let me see here. I don't think I have anyone. What the heck? I guess I'll send you here. I don't have anybody else. So he was spying on you. Suddenly started to counter spy. Would you trust him to have your back? Depends. Was I with him for 15 years? Has my life been in that? Again, has my life been in that person's hands for 15 years? Like, you had moments, you had missions where his life, like Windu owed him his life. There were moments there where Windu's life was in Anakin's hands and he saved him. So yeah, I do. I after 15 years, I trust the guy that saved my life. I trust the guy that I have seen save thousands of lives. Yes, even when he broke the rules, he was doing it to save thousands of lives. Yeah, that's the guy I trust. That, yes, I 100% put my trust in him. Even if you want to say that he didn't trust him in that moment, he had trust in him. He should have had trust in him a long time ago. There was no reason to ever not trust him. It wasn't 15 years. It was well, okay, from episode 1 to episode 2 was 10 years. Okay, so 13 years. Yeah. So from episode 1 to episode 2 was 10 years. And then the Clone Wars was 3 years long. So 13 years. 13 years. From the time that Anakin showed up and joined the Jedi to as a kid at the end of episode 1 to episode 3 was 13 years. Okay, so not 15. Yeah, because in between episode 1 and episode 2, I think it was 10 years. Right? I think it was 10 years. Okay. Yeah, 13 years. The first 10 years they were off-world. It was only those 3 years that Mace. It was only those 3 years that Mace would have had the more direct dealing. All right, I'll give you that. I'll give you 3 years. I'll give you 3 years. I would say that. Yeah, maybe he didn't know him in that 10 years. So I'll give you the 3 years. That'd be fun. Well, no, because you're still trained. Well, we'll have to come back to that, Lilac, at some point, because he's still trained in the Jedi Order. Right? It's not like you take your Padawan and you don't train within the Jedi Order. He still trained him there. Anakin trained Ahsoka when she was there. Barriss Offee was trained by Luminara when they were there. Kanan was trained within the Jedi Order. So he still would. I mean, they might not have met, but he was still it's not like they were off planet in hiding, right? They didn't train in Dagobah or something. They were training still there. They were still training at the Jedi Order, right? I would. They wouldn't be off world. There's no reason they would be off world. All of the other Jedi trained their Padawan there. Where was Cal? Where was Cal Kestis? I mean, they were on a ship, but when Order 66 happened, he was still very much an active part of the council. Anakin went off world a lot of the time. It wasn't in 15 years or so many. So I was supposed to trust. Suddenly betrayed me by spying on me, doing a crappy job of hiding. Well, he wasn't trying to hide it. He that's something that we'll disagree on. He wasn't trying to hide it. He was very upfront about the fact that Palpatine wants me on this council. I would disagree that he was trying to hide it. He stood in front of them and said, "Palpatine wants me on this council." They did basic training, but from Mace knew Anakin was hot-headed and used to unorthodox methods, such as focusing on a lightsaber stance that is made for offensive combat, as well as the hill. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Basic training is in the temple. Obi-Wan and Anakin were off-world a lot during missions. All right, I'll give you that one. So let's say 3 years of close quarters contact, right, during the Clone Wars. Give me. We don't know what the time difference was between the end of episode 2 and the beginning of the Clone Wars show, so give me 4 years. I'm gonna take an extra year. Let's call that plus or minus 1. All right. In those same 15 years, Rita Repulsa was in that space trash can. When's that crossover? Yeah, and that's of course the other question is how long is a Star Wars year, right? It's 365 Star Wars days, I believe, or roughly 52 Star Weeks. But that is going to do it for today. Let me see if anybody knows. But that is going to do it for today. So thank you everybody. Thank you for hanging out for our weird, one of our weirder just chatting, kind of all over the place. So at the end of to wrap up this Star Wars discussion, BlizzCon is canceled for 2024. But thank you for stopping in, for hanging out. I very, very much appreciate it. There was a game that I had thought about. I have a demo for a game it's like an RPG that's supposed to help you learn Japanese, and I was going to play the demo for that game, but maybe we'll just do that another time. The Force was not with Blizzard. Dragoon, they were gonna have BlizzCon, but they didn't want to force it. But yeah, so okay, tomorrow, there's a good chance that tomorrow's going to be canceled. I most likely will cancel stream tomorrow. Nothing's wrong. I have some stuff that I have to do. And then Sunday, we're going to be doing the charity event. I forget exactly which channel it is. If you keep an eye on Twitter, we'll be posting and retweeting there. What? Still makes me laugh, even though I know it's coming. So yeah, I may be limited as to, because I'm going to be in the chat for a good chunk of the time in voice chat for a lot of the day. So I'll probably take tomorrow to do the things that I have to do. I was also thinking about going downtown and just getting some ramen and picking up a few things. So we'll see what happens. But more than likely, we're going to cancel tomorrow's, which is Community Day. So worst comes to worst, we'll be back on Monday, and we'll be jumping back into Final Fantasy 16. For right now, though, I'm going to send you over to the only person I really have here. Actually, no, I have... No, I'm gonna send you here. I haven't sent you here in a little while. I'm gonna send you to Sayawada. Sayawada is gonna be playing Yakuza 0. So stick around after the credits, and I will send you over there to hang out and represent us very well. But thank you once again. Hold on a second. Let me get that ready to go because this always takes. I always have to click this twice. One day they'll fix this. There we go. But thank you once again, everybody, for stopping in, for hanging out. Don't forget to drink your mask. Wait. There we go. Don't forget to drink your mask, wear your water, social distance whenever possible. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great weekend. Play some fun games. Keep an eye on Twitter, and I will let you know about the charity event that is going to be. It's going to be Sunday at noon Eastern time, so adjust the times for yourself accordingly. And I will see you all next week.